Hey everyone, today we are going to continue our work with translating conic sections, and we're going to look at what happens when the center is not at 0, 0. But in order to do that, we first need to do a little refresher on completing the square. So this is something that we looked at back in Unit 5. It was a method that we used in order to solve quadratics. But when it comes to completing the square, just as a refresher for you, to complete the square and to fill in this blank, our goal is to fill it in with a number that makes it so that we can factor this into two sets of parentheses that are exactly the same so that we can write it like this. That is the goal. And so in this case, in order to do that, we have to take the b term, or 10. We have to divide it by 2, and then we take that answer and square it. So for this, I would say 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared is 25. So that is what's going to go in this blank right here. And if I check that, it would be saying I could put x plus 5 and x plus 5 here because 5 times 5 is 25. 5 plus 5 is 10. Same sign, both positive. So x plus 5 can go in each one. And I could rewrite that as x plus 5 quantity squared. So this one, it's a little bit different. We have a 3 in front of the x squared. And so what we need to do first is we need to factor that out. And we're left with x squared plus 2x plus blank. All right, so I took a 3 out of the two numbers that were visible. And so now, with that in mind, what number would go in this blank right here? We would get 2 divided by 2, which is 1, squared, which is 1. So we're going to put a 1 in there. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we would use that. Remember, we will have to balance another side of the equal sign, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. So that's just a refresher. Take the middle term, the b term, divide by 2, and square. So this is going to look more intimidating than I think it actually is. But this is the general equation for all conic sections. Basically, it's just saying that we can add up all of these things and set it equal to 0. And A and C cannot be 0. But basically, we're going to try and write things in standard form. This is the general equation for any conic section, but it's not standard form. We've looked at the 4 different standard forms. And so that's what we're going to do. So here, it's going to get a little trickier. So we've looked at how to identify a conic section from standard form, but now we're looking at the general form. So with this one, if you had to make a guess, what do you think it would be and why? What I'm going to look for is, first of all, if there are 2 squared variables. In this case, there are. So I can eliminate parabola. It can't be a parabola because that has only 1 squared variable. So next I'm going to look at what are both of them positive or is one negative? In this case, since they're both positive, that can eliminate the hyperbola. A hyperbola would have either a negative x squared or a negative y squared. The final thing then is deciding between a circle and an ellipse. So what I'm going to look at are the coefficients of x and y. Since the coefficients are both 1, when they're the same, it's going to make a circle. So I'm going to rewrite this so that my x's are together and then my y's are together, and we'll see if this can help us. So I'm going to have x squared minus 12x, and I'm going to go ahead and put a plus blank. We'll get back to that in a second. And then I've got plus y squared minus, plus 4y plus blank. And that all equals 8. There were no other constants here. So I can start to work toward making this be a circle. But to make it a circle, I can't have it be x squared minus 12x. I need it to be like x plus 1 quantity squared. So I need to complete the square. So if I were to complete the square for this blank, what would we get? We should get 12 divided by 2 squared, which would give us 36. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 squared is 36. So here, what would go in this blank? 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. But this is where, in the last semester, when we talked about solving by completing the square, we said you can't just arbitrarily throw in a plus 36 or a plus 4 anywhere you want. you have to balance the equation. So if we're adding 36 to one side, we have to add it to the other. So I added 36 here, so I have to also add it here. I added 4 here, so I need to add 4 over here. Now, the whole goal of this, of completing the square, was to be able to rewrite it like this. So I'm going to rewrite this to be x minus, whatever this sign is, x minus the square root of this number, which is 6. Again, 6 times 6 is 36, and 6 plus 6 is 12. So that works. Now, we have plus, what's going to go in this parentheses? We're going to have y plus 2, and it will be quantity squared. When we set that equal, we've got 36 plus 4 is 40, plus 8 is 48. And there you have it. We just rewrote the equation of this circle into standard form, and it does ask us to sketch it. And so I don't have a graph on here. That was poor planning on my part. Let me just grab one real quick. All right. So if I have this equation, there we go. I know that I have a center at 6, -2. So I'm going to plot that 6, -2 is my center. I know that my radius is going to be like 6.9. If I take the square root of 48, it's almost 49, which would be a nice even 7, but this is going to have to be 6.9. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's going to go off the graph. So this is going to go, that's going to be like, Oops. Give me some grace. I don't have lines to work with here. All right. Ooh, that is a really rough sketch. And that's why it says sketch and not graph as accurately as possible. All right, so there's kind of my sketch of the circle. So again, it would continue to go around that way, but just because it's off the graph, I'm not going to continue. All right, so there we go. We have identified and sketched. So I'm going to make a note that this is a circle. Okay, next one. Identify and sketch the graph of the conic section. Just from what we looked at in the last one and using what you know about conic sections, which one do you think this one would be and why? The correct answer is that this one would make a hyperbola, and I can identify that pretty easily because it has 2 squared variables and it's got a minus sign. So this one makes a hyperbola. Okay, so there we go, hyperbola. Now I need to put this into standard form if I want to graph it. I'm going to have 9x squared plus 2x. Sorry, I kind of skipped a step there. I got excited about the math. And so what I did was I said, okay, I would actually be putting the 9x squared plus 18x together. But then I knew that I wanted to factor out that 9 because I didn't want to have, I want to have an a value of 1. So I apologize for that, for skipping ahead there. Minus, and then with the y squared, there's no other y's, so I can just write minus 4y squared equals 27. So I'm going to now fill in the blank. What would go in this blank? It'd be 4, or sorry, it'd be 1, because half of 2 is 1, and then 1 squared is 1. But I'm not going to add a 1 to this side. Because it has this 9 outside, I have to multiply those together. So 9 times 1 would give me 9, and that's what I'm going to add to this side. I'm going to now have 9x plus 1 squared minus 4y squared equals 27 plus 9, which would give me 36. All right, now I'm going to divide everything by 36 because in standard form, a hyperbola equation has to equal 1. And I'm going to get x plus 1 squared over 4 minus y squared over 9 equals 1. But now I need to graph it. So to graph this, I'm going to have a center of -1, 0. Okay. Next, I'm going to identify my A and my B values. My A value is whatever comes first. So in this case, it's the square root of 4. So A is going to equal plus or minus 2. B is going to equal plus or minus 3. So because the 4 is under the x, the A value is under the square root of, the A is under the x squared variable, I am going to go in the x direction 2 to the right and 2 to the left. The 3, or the B value, is under y squared, so I'm going to go up 3 and down 3. Now I can draw the box. I can draw my asymptotes. And is this one going to open up and down or left to right? Because x comes first, it comes before the y, it's going to open left and right. So it's going to open like this. Right. Now, even though it didn't say to identify the foci, I still want to work through this because this is going to look a little different than previous times. The formula is still the same. We know that to find the foci, we do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to get 4 plus 9 equals c squared. 13 equals c squared. So c is going to equal, if we do the square root of 13, I'm typing that in a calculator. There we go. 3.6. All right. Now, in the past, I've told you that we need to write the foci as ordered pairs, and that's still true, but it's not just going to be plus or minus 3.60, because 3.6 would be here, but it would also be here, and those are not equidistant from the center. So we have to keep in mind that the center has moved. It's moved to the left one. So what it means is I actually need to do the center x value of -1 plus 3.6. So that's actually going to give me 2.6, comma 0, comma 0, because we didn't shift up or down. But then my other point is going to be at -1 minus 3.6. So -4.6, comma 0. All right. So these would be my two foci, 2.60 and -4.60. And that looks more like they're equidistant from the center. They are both 1, 2, 3.6 units away. 1, 2, 3.6. All right. So for this one, I would like for you to tell me what shape does it make and how do you know? This is going to make a parabola because it has one squared variable. So when I rewrite this one, it's going to look a little bit different. I'm going to write this as x squared minus 8x plus blank. I'm going to start with this, minus y and plus 19. We're just going to kind of keep everything right now. But I'm going to fill this in. I only need to complete the square for this one. When I complete the square, what do I get? I get 16. Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. But then I need to add 16 to the other side. Okay? All right. If we look at the notes from yesterday, here it is. The parabola Notice that we went from having the x squared or y squared written first to having the variable that's not squared written first. So we went back to vertex form. So I am going to still find the, rewrite this as x minus 4 quantity squared. But then I'm going to keep the plus 19 here. I'm going to bring this 16 over. And I'm going to bring this y over because it says that we want to have the variable that is not squared by itself. So I have, if I rewrite this, I get y equals x minus 4 squared plus 3. And that is something that we actually have graphed before. Hopefully we can remember back that far. But we would have a vertex. Oh, we said it was a parabola. I didn't write that down. We would have a vertex at 4, 3. So if I were to sketch this, I would go to 4, 3, and have a vertex here. Which direction is this going to open? It's going to open up because it's x squared, and it's a positive. So I know that my graph is going to end up looking like this. And there you have it. That's all I'm really looking for right now on parabolas is like, can we do the translation? So that's the gist of it. Okay, I know that that's a lot and you probably have some questions. So drop any and all questions in the comment section and we will discuss these more together and do some practice together. So let me know where you need some help and what you need clarification on.